We are recording. Hello, everybody. Today is the 9th of August, 2022. This is Dallas Personal Robotics Group Robot Builders Night Virtual. Try and say that quickly or backwards. Doesn't work very well. We're going to do the usual thing and go around the table tonight and talk about projects we're working on, questions we might have, and generally just things robot-y related. General upcoming events. Stuff on the left hasn't changed, so I won't go through it. Just as a reminder, we're going to kind of coattail on the Seattle Robotics Society. This August 27th, they have their, I think, second or so virtual Robothon exhibition. And our very own Doug D will be presenting something appropriately themed for telepresence for a virtual Robothon. So we are planning to reserve the room in the makerspace. I guess I got to get after that soon and get an appointment out on Meetup. So we'll do it. Whoever wants to be in person in the Dallas makerspace can join. I guess the bulk of it will be in Seattle. Okay. And then the other thing we have that I know of, I believe I heard, did the Robo Columbus move from October to the second week in November? I think I heard that.
Yes.
What we were told last week.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a done deal.
Website's updated.
Website's up to date. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So guess the good news is it's cooler and there's another month to actually make stuff work.
Yeah.
And hopefully a less just to find no chance of rain at all. Won't happen.
Right. And people that are competing from remote locations, they don't have to be there competing on the 27th. They can go ahead of time and submit their runs if they want to, so we can, I know like up in the Pat where there'll be snow, he doesn't want to run in. August is probably a better month for him. So, but I don't know where he is on his robot. So, but you got up to November 12th.
I'm aiming for mid-September.
Yep.
So I'm trying to do it before the color change on the leaves so that I'm not fighting with orange leaves in the bush.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Is there anything else that we should put on this rolling calendar planning slide? Okay.
So we're actually going to meet at the makerspace on the 27th. That's cool. I like that.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't have the official DPRG meeting this coming Saturday. So
yeah, I'll also be able to, like I say, if anybody wants that power supply that was donated, and I got some stuff for you, Ray, and that was all that. It's not Legos, it's metal Legos, whatever that is. And I got another thing that was donated that is really interesting. There's some really high quality project boxes. So it might be something, I mean, these are boxes. Let me get my camera going here. Okay, they probably range from about this big. They're kind of on the smallish side, but like they're waterproof and pretty. They're really nice, high quality boxes. They're a lot more high quality than I've ever used in any of my projects. Let me put it that way. And I've got about 12 or 15 of those that, if anybody's interested in some of them, they could pick them up at that meeting. Okay, and anyway, throw it out there.
Okay, cool.
Are you still looking to order those motors you talked about last week? I'm still willing to bring some money for you.
Okay, well, Doug, you were going to buy 10, right?
Right. I'll buy 10.
Okay, just go ahead and buy 10. I've already bought 10 myself, so.
Okay.
And nobody else let me know if they wanted it. So, I can tell you this. if you go to Pololu and not look at the 25 millimeter motors, the 20 millimeter motors, that's what they are basically.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So here you're getting a 20 millimeter motor with a quadrature encoder on it for $5. I mean, I can't even buy one of those cheap yellow ones with an encoder on for that.
Yeah.
And like I say, if you buy 10, you get free shipping. So that's why.
Okay,
You know.
where's this? I missed the last meeting, and I've got kind of a want /
Yeah.
need.
I'll tell you where Harold, I actually, you were kind of an inspiration for me on it.
I
I
was.
said, yeah, because I was sitting here thinking, why do I need
Don't
10 of
give me
these
the
little
big head.
suckers? Why do I need 10 of these little suckers? And then it dawned on me, these would be just perfect for a thumper type or a, what's that, the one you have,
Rocker bogey.
huh?
Rocker bogey.
The rocker bogey one, yeah. You know, they'd be, because they're small, you know,
Yeah.
they're really, I mean, like I say, they would easily fit into PVC pipe if you didn't want to, you know, if you didn't want to.
Yeah, and use that for
Correct.
the drive motors on all the wheels and things.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you know, individually, you know, these are 6-volt motors, and I'm going to run mine at, you know, 2S, so that's 7.2 volts nominal and 8.4 max. So, you know, they're not ever going to be running at that speed, but that'll be the voltage that's on them. So there's but I thought, you know, if you had 6 of these suckers going all at once, and on a light robot, that'd be pretty good. So like I said, that's why what caused me to pull the trigger on them. So I said, you know, anyway.
So is there a link somewhere or whatever?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. It was in, yes, it's in, I tell you what, actually, just so you know, they're in the chat record for last week.
Okay.
If I can find the link again, I'll put it in.
Just chuck it in there. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a couple of things that are not robotic that I want. They're robotic, but I could use a bunch of stepper motors to do it. I'm thinking about starting to investigate building a Rubik's Cube solver. That's solver made out of Legos, and because they have encoders and thing on them, maybe that's good enough for what I need for spinning left, right, up, and down. Because you know usually.
Well, okay, just for, you know, I built one of those. I built a Rubik's Cube solver, and I used some of the inexpensive stepper motors, and I think that's a better solution for that.
It probably is, but having 10 of those little motors around that's got encoders on them, that can't be a bad thing to have.
Right. If you were going to use them for that particular application, I would suggest that you go through some sort of 3D printed worm gear reduction.
Oh, I got you.
So that you could spin the motor up. I mean, if you're trying to do a half of a turn, it's probably not the best way to do it with that motor.
I put the links in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I am looking right now.
Doug, are you taking a consolidated purchase, or is everybody on their own?
Well, you know, if there's people who want 2 or 4, and we can get up to 10, you know, I not problem. You know, we could, now that we got a meeting on the 27th, you know, my biggest problem was, you know, I get them shipped to us for free, and then we spend a bunch of money either in gas or mail to get them to people. That didn't make much sense. But if we were going to meet and, you know, we could get them, just hand them out, that'd be fine. So if people want to take a look at it, like I say, you know, I mean, these are not, you know, if you're used to using the big 25 millimeter motors that, you know, are 12 volt, these aren't going to be in the same league as those. It's just not going to, you know, they're they're just not that. But if you look at the 20 millimeter, if you've been using those micro motors,
Mm-hmm.
these would be the 37Ds for the micro motors.
Micromotor.
Yeah, I mean, these would be much
just
better
thinking-
than that, you know.
I'm just thinking I got
So-
I got a whole bunch of potential projects in my head, and having 10 of these little motors that do things, but I've got motors on them,
Yeah,
and that's cool.
yeah. So anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
what I know some of the history of what happened there. That company put out a small little robot kit and it busted. Nobody bought it. You know what I mean? It was too expensive because they were trying to sell their motor drivers and their controller board and their wheels and their little metal frame and everything, and it just didn't take off. So they ended up with, I think they have about a little over 12,500 of these
Well, it says
on their
1,298 on their website as of right now.
Okay, so yeah, something like that. When I first looked at it, they had over 13,000. So I mean, at $5, it's pretty hard for them to be, for them. And I actually, like I say, I have two of them that I got from Rick Swan, and they look like nice motors.
Looks like they're geared at 53 to 1.
Yeah, they're 100. There's I don't know if Doug put it in, but there's a link to their specs too.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, and that they're at 6 volts. They're 150 no load. They're 150 RPM. So if you really wanted to do some racing around, they're probably not going to get you there. But 150, you figure you're running at half, so that's 80. I've seen a lot of continuous servo based robots like the Bobot and stuff like that, and they can't run more than 60. They don't run more than 60 RPMs.
Yeah.
So you're faster than a Bobot. So if you ever seen a Bobot running around, that's because you figure you're going to be running them in about half speed to be in the maximum part of the power curve. So, yeah, I'm waiting with bated breath. They've shipped, but I haven't received them yet. Doug, did you get yours yet? Have you gotten yours yet, Doug?
Oh, I didn't order mine. I thought we were going to do a consolidated order.
Okay, all right. Yeah, just like I say, they were pretty quick on. I can confirm that it was 0 shipping. They send it FedEx, so somebody's paying for it.
Yeah.
And I got the shipping notice like one day after I made my order, so that was pretty good.
So did you order from this website?
Huh?
Did you order from the website that's linked
Yep,
there?
just went up to the website, where it says quantity, you just put 10 in, it's $50 and you'll notice the shipping is 0.
Doug, I think it's $35. I recently purchased, but I bought it for much more. But I think the limit was $35 for free shipping.
Oh, is it?
I bought these motors, and I also bought these servo motors, which might be interesting for you, Pat, if you're looking for. They're tiny, 5.12 degrees or something like that is the resolution, but they were like $2 each.
Mm-hmm.
They were also on sale.
Yeah.
Servo Motors. And I bought these wheels, but the wheels seems to be the ones for like servo motors and not work with the motors that we Doug was sharing. So
Yeah,
don't buy the
they do make a wheel for it, but
Okay.
I do a lot of Polo Lou wheels,
Mhm.
so that's where I saw them, the one, like I say, the kit. I was given a partial kit. That's why I've got 2 motors. I didn't get the controller board. All I got was 2 motors, a little metal frame, and 2 wheels. And when you look at they didn't even have a caster. What they had was they just had a stub, and that was, just dragged on the ground. That was their caster. So, I mean, that's, you can look at the robot kit and you can say, oh, I wouldn't buy this. But, so I do have 2 of their little motor controllers. The biggest problem with their motor controllers is I think they're $15 a piece. But there's, they have one nice advantage. I believe they work like a servo. Otherwise, you have a pulse width that you're putting in every 20 milliseconds. But there are alternative motor controllers cheaper. Kareem showed one 6 or 7 months ago that was really nice. It's like, like a 3 amp or 10 amp. So it was some crazy current, and it was about the same price. And I believe that Vex has some, but they're only like 1.5 amps or something like that. I have some of those because I won when Vex was a big supporter of DPRG. They would give us gift certificates, and I won one in one of our contests. And I didn't know what to buy, so I bought a bunch of these motor controllers. But if I'm on these, I'd be probably using just the cheapest motor controller I could get, because they only, their stall current is only 400 milliamps. So that's not, nothing to do it. But I was really curious, like I said, this might be, something that I would end up making one of those Rocky Bolt, more like a Mars rover type thing, or a thumper. The thumper has 25 millimeter motors in it, so it's a little more torqueier, but what you need, you just have to figure out. Let me put it this way. What does $5 buy you nowadays? Like I say, I can't even buy a one of these yellow plastic motors for $5. So these are better than that. So.
And all the little robot projects you can make.
Yeah.
Right, and I think the quality of the motors construction seems to be good. And from what I know, Vigilant is owned by National Instruments, my first employer, and they make quality stuff. They don't cheap out on things. So
no.
I saw Vigilant and National Instruments. I was like, yeah, I'm buying this.
Yeah, there is. They have a 12-volt version of this motor that you can look up, but I want to say they want $12 for it, which is still a pretty good bargain, but it's not $5. And so, but that one's a little, at 12 volts, you get a little more power.
Well, this is an opportunity to think of some insane project that runs like 50 motors. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. When I first saw it, I said, man, this would be great if we were planning some sort of robot build, where we were having a kit. We could buy, we could put together a kit probably for the price of the one we used the last time, and it would be so much better,
Or I've heard of somebody doing some kind of crazy spider. Why stop at a spider? Do a millipede.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of
that would draw though.
Speaking of some of that contest thing, I've been talking to Sin Shop guys at Pong out there in Las Vegas, and there may or may not be in the works with the people that have competed in the battle bots a lot to something they're calling battle boats.
Oh,
Yeah, I like it.
And so they're working on rules and things and trying to figure that out. And so if battle bots wasn't hard enough, now you can be sunk.
You sunk my battleship.
Exactly.
Harold, there's actually a club here in Dallas that makes big BASA replicas of World War II battleships,
Yeah.
and they use a compressed air BB shoot. It's not BB. It's pretty. It's like a quarter-inch ball
Quarter-inch
bearing.
bearing,
Airsoft things. They're
And boy, I mean, I saw one. I mean, there's a pretty substantial boats, and they just shoot each other until they sink one of them. And I mean,
Dude,
I wouldn't want to be hit by those quarter-inch ball
I-
bearings.
It'd be something to go see one time, I think.
Yeah.
Say I did it.
hmm But
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying is, they meet. They used to meet at the makerspace. I don't know. I don't remember. Ray, you remember their name? What they were called?
I don't, but what I was going to say is I was amazed that they were actually able to salvage stuff off of a boat that's sunk. You know, you'd think it would fry the electronics, but they
Yeah.
look like they salvaged a lot of it. So
Yeah.
Carl linked the YouTube video for it.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Hey guys, that's my last contribution for next hour. So I had got to do work, or I'm going to be in deep doo-doo tomorrow. So
Okay.
I'm going to step aside for an hour or so. But I put the the open mic queue that we have so far: Ray, Pat, Doug D, then Harold, then open. So if you guys could have at it, and if somebody could just jump in and put notes in there like I've been doing, so we know person, time, and topic. That would
Yeah.
really help when we have the chat on the website.
Yeah, that got to be an issue with Dave Anderson trying to find something that one of the people put in a while back.
Yeah.
But I did find out something, and here's a piece of information before we get on with the list. If you want to try to find something that you think might be in a chat record, you just put Google DPR chat record and whatever the word is that you're trying to find, like in that case, LiDAR. And I guess all those things are put out on Google. Makes it kind of scary, but you know, there it is. Kind of interesting. So anyway, so it is possible to search those using Google. I don't know if it hits them all, but it hits some of them.
Maybe Doug, there's like a whole syntax for controlling the Google search engine. Maybe we should look that up, where you give your search term, I think, and then it's insight:/dprg.org or something like that. So if we can look up that syntax, that might be a useful thing to put on the website and put in here. But
yeah, because I don't know of any real good way for us to we can't have a better search engine than Google. It's just not going to happen.
no.
Yeah, but I guess we need to do what you're saying. I guess, okay.
Much easier than the finding a really good WordPress plugin site search, because those are pricey too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if nobody finds it and reminds me, I can look it up. I've stumbled on it before, so the site's already crawled by Google. Might as well use it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Carry on, guys. Ray is first in queue, and we get going here.
okay, I have a video. Share. Okay. Is that the one? Yes, it is. The audio on this may be too low. Can you see the video?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, this is extremely fast moving. That's my platform on the ground. It's heading towards its first waypoint, and it should just like pause for a second. And the other thing is had basically a wireless link using ESP now to that small module, and I'll show that. Okay, so it caught the first waypoint. And yeah, it's like 15 more meters. Creeping up on it. It's only going about, well, with that battery, about a third the speed. So I had a little OLED display on the top of that white tube, but it's very small and it's, in bright sunlight, it's very difficult to read. And that's why I went with the other thing that I have in my hand. I'll show afterwards. It's actually, it's referred to as, like, the part number is WT32.SC01. And it's got an ESP32 in it and I think that was a 320 by 480 display with a capacitive touch panel, and it was only like 36 or 37 bucks from Banggood. Anyway, so I don't have the camera on this yet, and I think I'm going to get, just eliminate the display, because this other thing is so much easier to use. And I'll show it here in a second.
Is this RTK?
No, nope.
So what's it doing? So what's driving it, Ray?
I've got a B&O 055,
Okay.
and I've got one of the MP8s, I think it is, Neo MP8.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can see the antenna on the back of it there, the little square thing. Anyway, it gets to the second waypoint and then does something weird. So at least it's, it finds at least my first. I was trying to get it to do the first, 3 waypoints, basically, just like you would in a contest, or at least minimum 3. But after this, it wanders in circles. So something's obviously not quite right. Not ready for prime time.
Is the waypoint in the middle of the circle?
I think it might be. And I did I turn it off at this point, I think. Yeah. Anyway, let's see here. Okay. I'm going to stop presenting and show you the other thing. Probably be better if you pinned me, but you can get it at Banggood. It's actually a Seed Studio product, but several people sell it, and it's fairly nice.
Ray, can you hold that up again?
Oh, I'll hold the real thing. Well, okay.
I was going to write it down what it said it was.
Oh, okay.
WT32-SC01.
Yeah.
What's the 3.5?
It's a 3.5-inch diagonal display. That's how
Okay.
measure.
So that's the display.
Diagonal.
What are you using on what board are you using? You said it was a 32, but
Yeah, it's an ESP32. There's that's what the thing is based on. And you have, it has its own, like, graphics programming language, so you can get, professional looking displays up on it. Different widgets, I think is what they refer to them as, but you can do that, or you can just use it like with, Arduino programming, and it works just as well. So I just put this in a 3D case, and right now it's in like touchscreen paint mode. So if I drag my finger across here, I can, do that kind of stuff. But that's not the main use that I have. So when I turn on the robot, it starts sending basically the state of the robot to me in text. So any parameter that I'd want to see, like I'm, printing out latitude, longitude, the state of the BNO 055, is the magnetometer, accelerometer, they all calibrated. The distance to the waypoint, the angle to the waypoint, what the current heading of the robot is, all that kind of stuff. And this is, you can make the text a lot bigger. And it's a lot brighter than that little teeny,
Little one, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about your robot here, because so you're using a GPS to give you your latitude and longitude, and you're using your BNO to and your magnetometer on your BNO to establish a heading, I assume. And then you're also getting a heading from your calculations of where you are on your GPS.
Right.
So how are you blending those two together? How are you fusing those two pieces of data?
Basically copied what Dave Anderson did. And so it's like the distance between the two waypoints is from the GPS, latitude and longitude, just between the 2 points that you want to, go between, I guess. From that, I can get a heading, and then I use the BNO 055, basically the heading from it to match the target that I got from the GPS coordinates. So, and I think that's what Dave did pretty much. So it, and every second it's, very slow update rate. I could speed it up, but right now it's a second. I update basically, the meters to go, the distance that I have to go still to get to that, to the waypoint, and then what heading I should go at. So and the BNO 055 is basically, I use the number at what the current heading is to adjust the relative drive between the two, the differential drive motors to make the two headings match.
Okay.
So that was a question that I had. Is anybody including magnetic declination?
I think you have to if you're going to be comparing a GPS and a magnetometer.
Right.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
including the declination.
Yeah.
You are? Okay. Yeah. It's not huge. I mean, it's like 2.58
2.85
degrees. Yeah, where I live. Probably going to be a little different where Steve lives. I don't know if it would show up. What's that?
Shouldn't be much different. It
No.
doesn't change very much over moderate geographical lengths.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
There's still something going on. If I use Dave's equations for to basically get that distance, well, I actually no, the distance came out okay. The heading was off, and I found another set of equations that actually agreed with Google Maps and IGES Maps and stuff like that.
You did?
I don't know why.
Hey, Ray, can you get that link? Because I couldn't get the distance right. I could get the angle, but I couldn't get the distance. I'd be close, but I couldn't get it to match. I couldn't get it to match Google. So if you got something that matches Google, I sure would like to see that. Hello? Uh-oh. I think Ray has gone into...
Oh, okay. You came back. Sorry. Can you say that again?
Can you
Can
put
you
the
repeat
link?
that? You froze.
Yeah. Can you put a link to the code that matched the distance for Google?
Okay. Actually, I sent it in an email to asking.
And that display is
You know,
from DF Robots?
It's the again. Doug, can you say that again?
Okay, two questions. The display, is that from DF Robots?
No, I got it off Banggood, but it's actually,
Okay.
you can see it on video. They both make one.
Please review user's
It
manual
looks
before operating robot.
They use now, which is, it's like, you know, method, 2.5 gigahertz. Basically you create a structure of structure, and you can send you want, you know, doubles, floats, integers, booleans, whatever, character strings, you know, anything you want. You have to know what the receiver MAC is, but they have a program that, you know, it takes 2 seconds to run it and find out what it is. So it's pretty quick to get it going. And actually, it came from new nerd tutorials.
I'm sorry,
website.
Ray, repeat that last part. It came from,
Random nerd tutorials.
random, is that the display or the routine?
Yeah, the code.
The code for matching Google's came from
Yes.
Random Nerds.
The code came from Random Nerd.
Now, is that the code for the GPS distance or for the display?
It's for the
Ray's internet has degraded to a point where he's really unintelligible.
Yeah, I know. Hey, Ray, can you drop off and try to reconnect?
What I heard him say was that the Random Nerds tutorial was your Google Earth calculations.
Okay, okay. And
Funny the way internet goes in and out.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I think in Ray's case, I think it's he's probably marginal at best. He's basically using a phone. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd like to get that. Like I said, I couldn't get more than about 2 feet on that, where you can see if he was trying to do that last waypoint where he was circling, 2 feet would probably be a problem. Okay, who was next?
Hey guys, so I wanted to give a little bit of an update.
Okay.
I've been working on my GPS for Robo Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one that actually works indoors, so that's a plus. Since the other one wouldn't even catch a satellite outdoors, so it's been good. So I got a video presentation just to show quickly, and window. So can everybody see that?
Yep.
Picture of the GPS. And just to play. So it's communicating, and I got the little Adafruit Trinket M0 that'll flash how many satellites are connected to the GPS as it goes. And then it sends the signal by serial to the USB port. So a little bit of help for troubleshooting when you're out in the field and you don't know what's going on. You know, are you connected? Are things going well? So basically it does it on a, I think it's 10-second interval. It'll just flash the number of satellites. And if there's no satellite connected, it'll dot star LED is solid red. And otherwise it'll flash yellow for less than 8 satellites and green for more than 8 satellites.
Is that your GPS, or are you just getting the NEMA message and putting it on your microprocessor?
I am gathering the messages out of the GPS, and then I'm just sending latitude, longitude, heading, and number of satellites back to the computer. So I'm doing it at a 5 hertz rate. Back to the Trinket and to the USB port. And then from there, I just read it using serial transfer into a Python routine. So I'm interested to see how Ray got his data to show up on any sort of map, Google Maps or whatever, to see how it's working when I test it in the backyard. I'd like to take it for a walk, 300 feet, and see what happens and how accurate it is on my path.
I don't think that's what Ray was doing. Maybe wrong, but what I think what Ray was doing was he would take 2 waypoints on Google Maps, okay?
Yeah.
And from that, you can get their longitude and latitude and their distance. And there's another thing that he used to get a heading. I'm not sure what, it was something he showed it, but it was a little different. So he's using those values to compare them against his calculations. That's what he was saying. And he got them to match.
Okay, I'm just curious if there's a way to show your GPS coordinates, your track on Google Maps.
After everyone else is gone, when I'm next in line, I'll demo something along the lines of what you're asking about, Pat.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. There's if you're going to use, I think a Google Earth or whatever, you have to get a certain token from Google. And if you used it for like every minute of the day for all the time, then you would have to pay for it. But for us, it's free. And you can embed that in your applications to show a map and map where you are.
Search graphs by price.
But we'll let Paul, he's got a working one. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Paul, but there's a JavaScript library and a few other things to make that happen depending on how you want to display that.
Okay, well, I'll see what Paul has for a demo later, and hopefully it'll solve some of what I'm looking at. Is basically I'm just going to walk around with the GPS and a laptop and record some values or whatever and see how I can map it and confirm my walking path.
Yeah.
Are you saying you want to see the map updates live while you're driving, or are you talking about logging your waypoints and showing it after the fact?
I'd like to log it to a CSV file and then import it or whatever I've got to do to bring it into some sort of mapping program to see coordinates.
Okay, here's another
Save it as a KML file.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Save it as a KML file. It's KML, yeah. It's an XML format that I think it's called Keystone at some point. But yeah, it's a location markup format that Google Earth and Google Maps use.
Yeah. Roger, you had your hands up. Raj?
Yeah, that was my mistake. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
That was my mistake, Doc.
Okay. Well, hey, Pat.
Yep.
Another simple, if you just want to know where you were, there are a lot of jogger type applications for the phone. Do you have an Apple or Android?
I've got an Android phone.
Okay, I can't tell you then because mine's an Apple, but there's a lot of jogger apps that will actually use the phone's GPS and take a map of what you ran. That would, if you wanted to just do a real quick, sanity check of where you were live, and they'll record it to a track, and then you just display the track. And I believe they can be outputted into the file format that Kareem is talking about. So you might just look up Android apps or GPS jogger.
Yeah, what I'm looking to do is to see how my actual GPS on the robot is capturing data, and is it fairly accurate? Okay. Not just my walking path, but essentially where the robot would be traveling.
Okay.
Perhaps we should just let Paul go. He can jump the queue.
Let's keep Paul.
Go, Paul, go.
Well,
Go, Paul.
I don't want to jump ahead of anybody, but okay.
I think we're big boys. We can handle it.
All right, let me just get a couple things set up and okay. So let me see if we can drive it. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to share my desktop and show what I think Pat is really asking for. Where's my desktop?
Are you trying to gather a bunch of, latitude and longitude numbers and just stick them into, some website somewhere and have it plot all the points, or?
No.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is just to confirm that the robot is fairly close to where my actual walk is.
Right.
So Pat, you're using ROS, and what I'm showing here is the use of the RViz satellite plugin to ROS, and that is described in. So I guess I should not log my time.
So RViz is part of ROS, though, right, Paul?
Say again?
RViz is part of ROS, correct?
Yeah, yes. And Pat is using ROS at least for part of his system. Y'all are seeing this, my screen, right? And can you see the page I've got up for RViz satellite?
Yep.
We can see the page. We can't really read it. You're gonna have to paste that.
Right. I'll paste the URL into the chat window. And by the way, just an unrelated aside, much to my surprise, I got a message through LinkedIn from one of my former bosses who was cruising around and viewing the RBNV videos, and he saw me, I guess, on last week's video presenting something, and so he hit me up. So actually, surprisingly enough, people are people like that we don't even know are watching the RBNV videos.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to so this is an aerial view of my house. If I increase this to 8, then I can zoom in and it starts filling in tiles, with more stuff from around my neighborhood. But the thing I want to point out, and this demo is only, I'd hope to be further along with this demo than I am. I don't have it correctly positioning. So this is the robot here. It's a URDF model of the robot, and I don't have it correctly positioning the robot in space. Obviously, what I'm trying to do here is just what Pat described he wanted, which is to be able to drive it and watch it navigate. So I'm gonna just drive it here briefly, just so you can see it move. And so this is in my office, and my office is actually here. So this is, you're seeing the problem where there's an offset between the where the robot is displayed and where it actually is, and the offset is caused by frames not being correctly set up. So in ROS, you've got an ODOM frame, which is like a coordinate frame that has a relationship to the base link, which is the robot's center, and it publishes that relationship periodically. It's like X and Y is so many meters and rotation is whatever. And I currently have map and ODOM the same, but they shouldn't be. The map needs to be fixed in the world, and I don't have it fixed in the world. So that's really the underlying cause of this being incorrect. But I think hopefully in my video, I'll just aim the camera sort of like a little bit down there, and if you're looking at my video in your side window, you should see the robot rotate, and you see it rotating here on the screen. Now you can cause trails of arrows to be left behind the robot in RViz, and I just don't remember exactly how you do that. But somewhere in here you can show arrows. That's what it is. Frames, and so you can also look at the relationship between the frames. So if I drive the robot forward a little bit, it's you can see the ODOM frame, its base link is, I'll turn some of these others off. The base link is pointing back to the ODOM frame, and I don't have the map frame being published at the moment, but let me do that. There we go, and now GPS link and map. And now ODOM and map are actually what you're looking at. This label here is ODOM and map printed over the top of each other. So I think that's all I had. But Pat, is that kind of the idea that you were asking about?
Yeah, sort of. It doesn't have to be live updates. So if it's something I can import into a mapping program, that would be fine with me as well.
Oops, Pat, I'm not hearing you.
I heard him.
Is it only my audio that's gone dead?
Can you guys
can you hear me now?
Oh dear, I think I lost audio somehow.
I think you did.
I'll stop presenting and maybe it'll come back. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
No,
Yeah.
I can't hear you. Oh, hang on.
Can you hear me now? Isn't technology wonderful?
That happened to me in a Teams meeting this morning.
Hey, Ray, while we're waiting.
I'm going to have to rejoin because I can't hear you guys. Just try reload.
Hey, Ray, before you leave.
Sorry, go
You
ahead.
said you got it from the Random Nerd tutorial. Is this the tiny GPS++ library? Is that what you're using?
No. The random nerd tutorial stuff was the ESP now. It's the communication protocol or method that you can use to communicate between two ESP32s.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's like 2.5 gigahertz.
Sorry, I'm going to have to fix my audio. Carry on, and I'll rejoin the conversation when I can.
Okay.
In their example, in line of sight, I think they got like 700 meters or so.
Yeah.
I want to say. I'd have to look that up. Don't quote me on that. In the ESP now little tutorial, he kind of shows the distance, and which that's fine for me. I mean, I was just wanting something that I could look at independent of walking along, trying to look at this very small display with very small text on it, and because you can make the fonts as big as you want. So granted, you can't display as much, but if you can actually read it, that's
a plus.
Yeah.
So could you put a link to where the routines for your GPS distance and heading, where you got them?
Okay.
Because if you can do that, I would really appreciate it. Because you said you matched Google.
With another set, the distance was okay with David Anderson's equations. The angle was off quite a bit, and I wondered if and I sent an email to David, and I'll send the same thing to you.
Okay.
I wondered if his equations require a longer distance, or the waypoints to be further apart, or some minimum distance. The other set of equations, there seemed like they were, Dave's method, and I've seen an alternative out on the web. Several websites will.
Yeah.
You just have to look up, how do you get distance and heading from two GPS coordinates, and there'll be several websites that'll detail.
Yeah, but I haven't found one that's matched. I haven't found one that's matched, that truly matched Google. Heading is no problem, but distance, like I say, I'm within.
Yeah, that's weird. Distance
within
for me was okay, but the heading was way off.
Yeah. So if you get to put a link or something, I could really appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll probably just send it to you through email because I'm on my phone now. My internet
I got
crashed and burned.
Thank you. All right. Who was next?
Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are other questions for me, but fire away if you need to.
Yeah.
I think it was Doug.
I don't think I'm next. Hope I'm not next.
Doesn't really matter.
Hey, I think Harold had something.
I can go next if nobody's up next.
Hey, Raj, go.
All right. Yeah. Just a second.
Hey, Pat, I thought Kareem had something to map GPS coordinates to, an actual Google map or something. I don't know if Kareem's still on the line. Kareem, could you comment on that?
Okay. Well, Raj is doing his thing right now, so
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the rover for RoboColumbus that I'm working on.
Yeah.
Last time I demoed with ESP8266 and a web app, which was really bad for controlling this rover, right? So then I got this, it's a flight drone controller module, which is from FlySky, one of the cheapest, but very popular ones. That's a receiver. And there is a thing called iBus, and I'm using iBus to communicate with Arduino Mega here because it just requires one serial pin to receive the signal from the FlySky receiver instead of connecting all the servos. Right, so I can also directly connect the servo signal there, but right now I'm just using it for serial communication. So all these 10 channels go to serial, where serial communication goes into the Mega, and then Mega can control anything on this robot. So here's a demo. There's no delay, really good. And the range is pretty amazing. In the past, my experience has been easily over a mile or so. But I haven't tested this particular controller. But from what I see, drones, the range is pretty good. But on ground, it might be lower, but still, unless I have some kind of FPV, I won't go out of range. Before that, I won't see the robot itself.
That's a FlySky, Raj?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a $60 radio. Pretty good, reliable. I can say what it should do when it loses the signal from my transmitter. It's mainly designed for drones, so it's pretty reliable. I can set it fail safe. I can make it do things. The best thing is when I was using these controllers like 5, 6 years ago, 8 years ago. Now this thing has iBus, which I didn't know until I bought this, or when I was researching about these things, because I like this radio. I saw the other option was what CarLot does with Link's receiver and transmitter, which is like a joystick or a gamepad. But that was losing connections. He was having issues. So I went ahead and explored, and I really like this thing. It has 10 channels, so I can program it to do autonomous and manual driving around, and using these toggle switches here. I have 6 analog channels. This is more for the throttle, and then left, right. Here also I have this. Mainly used for drones and aircrafts, but I thought I could use it for robot, and it seems to be doing pretty good. I don't think I'll use all of these, but I'm definitely planning on using these toggle switches to say, hey, here, stop the robot, or start driving the robot, or something like that with the low-level controller, which is going to be Arduino Mega now. Yeah, that's kind of my update on the RoboColumbus robot. And is there a date that's finalized on the competition? Because I'm planning to be flying out of country in mid-November, so I'm like curious when it is. Is it
okay? It's on
flag,
November 12th.
Okay, I think I'll be here, so
Okay.
I might be able to make it.
Raj, I didn't quite get what iBus is.
So iBus is a communication protocol that they use for drones these days. So there's a two-way communication that's happening between the transmitter receiver. So let me bring it to more light here and flip my camera here. So this is the receiver for the drone.
Yeah.
Right. So this has 10 channels. I can connect 10 servo motors right here if I want.
Mm-hmm.
It also has servo sense and control output. So this is the output that I'm using. It's called iBus output. This is specific to the receivers and transmitters. If you have a transmitter and receiver that supports iBus, there's a library for pretty much all devices. I used one for Arduino. There's one for Pico. I didn't get to play around with Pico yet, but it's a serial communication. So it works on serial communication. The baud rate is about 75K at this point of time. I don't know if that's changeable, but it's just a serial communication. So there's a transmit on this. I connect it to the receive on one of the serial ports on Mega, and use a module to, I need to look up the module name, but I can just use that and get all the signals from here on serial communication, all the 10 channels values into Arduino Mega over one single cable, which is the serial transmit on this and receive on this. There's a way to send signal from there to back to this. I couldn't figure out. I couldn't find anyone who's done that yet. But there are sensors that I can connect here on a cascading way, which can measure temperature, altitude, voltage of the battery, and things like that. And that is why I said that there's a two-way communication between the transmitter and the receiver.
Okay. Okay, so you might be able to spoof those other channels to send information back. Is what you're trying
not
to...
the channels. There is a transmit on this, which is called iBus Sense instead of the servo. iBus servo is the output from the receiver. iBus Sense is the receiver, or something that transmits from the receiver to the transmitter. And usually I can see on this display a couple of sensors readings. Like I can see what is the voltage on the robot if I want to, but I think I need to buy a module for it. I was looking to see if I can just hook up my transmit on Mega to iBus on this receiver to transmit that data. So that's pretty cool, but I still have to figure that out at this point of time. But I think this is a cool solution, more reliable, more long range. So that's my my feeling so far.
I'd like to offer a bring up a relevant topic here, only because I got a talking to, which I want to relate, and it's relevant to, I think, what you just showed, Raj. What was Ron Grant's old mechanical engineer buddy, Will Canule? Was that his name?
Yeah, Will.
Yeah. He gave me a talking to at one of the DPRG meetings because I demoed one of my robots and I was using a flight controller, RC controller, such as you've just shown, Raj. And what he basically said to me is there's different frequencies that are assigned to aircraft versus ground robots. And the aircraft people are very structured about how they use their frequencies, and they have like tags that say I'm using this channel, and so when Joe is using that channel, and the ground people aren't. And so what he told me was, you're just like jumping on some channel without coordination with aircraft people, and fly someone's aircraft into the ground. After which I had to sell my RC transmitter and get one that had ground frequencies. So I'm throwing that out for group discussion because I don't know if that's still current given the number of drones in the world or whatever.
Yeah. So, well, I should point out, that for like Robo Columbus, the only communications that you can send to your robot are the RTK signals and the safety switch. I mean, you can't be driving your robot around. Okay, that's pretty obvious.
Right.
But
obvious. Yeah.
there's a teleop, I think you call it, when you're sending data from your robot back to your base station. That's okay. You know what I'm saying? So like if Raj is using this iBus, and I don't know anything about iBus, but if he's using that to send him, well, just for this one that I know that he can do because he told us, his robot battery voltage to his, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if he slips in, like turn left, that's
Yeah,
bad.
no, I'm not talking about the Rover Columbus competition. I'm talking about the general use of aircraft
So,
RC
Paul?
transmitters. So that's
Oh,
what I'm
yeah.
asking the group
Well,
about.
I have a view on this, and I think it's accurate. So I'm one of those who got started in the day. I mean, I assembled my first RC stuff in the 5th and 6th grade, right? Soldering lots of little parts with way too big of an iron, and then actually finding somebody that could help get it working. And that was many moons ago, right? And in those days, the way that whether it was aircraft or cars, it was the same concept. Uh, there was separation of devices by frequency, literally frequency. So they had this big board, and they'd have nails in it, and they'd have one of those clothespins with and there was two colored flags dangles, like kite tail dangles. So that each frequency had a 2-color, and there was like a dozen or 2 dozen frequencies. There was more on the ham bands, which was why I eventually, many moons later, a few years ago, the Makerspace got my expert ham license. But it's obsolete because in the day, what you would do is you go to the flying field or the RC car field, and you go up to the board, and it was an honor system. So you also had these giant antennas, right? 2 and 3 foot antennas you'd have to extend. So you'd grab the clothespin from the frequency board, put it on your antenna, and then when you're out there in the field, here are these 2 kite strings, kite tail things dangling down by color. So not only could you tell that clothespin wasn't on a pegboard, so somebody had it, you could tell who had it because you knew the colors, and the colors were dangling by these coattail or kite tail things. But what's then happened was that somewhere in the, I think, 80s, late 70s or 80s, the FCC, too many people were after the spectrum, as they're always after free spectrum, especially hobbyists. So the RC guys and ham radio guys are perpetually under threat.
Yeah, Carl, I believe the protocol on that, because I remember those things, that if you didn't have the clothespin, you didn't turn on your transmitter. That was the way it was.
Well, and then of course somebody would invariably do that, and then the next thing you know, someone else's plane would be crashing into the ground.
Yeah.
But it was very much the honor systems. But what happened in the 70s and 80s was that the FCC mandated, as technology advanced, they mandated much tighter guard bands so they could pack more channels in the spectrum. So they basically made that radio, which I so carefully assembled, obsolete and illegal to use. And then it wasn't long after that the military, like GPS CDMA technologies came along, right? So they not only made it into our cell phones and power things like LTEs today, but now you have spread spectrum in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and I think like these fly ski transmitters like Raj was showing. So I think these days, there is no such, I mean, think about it. Who has not to rag on age groups, but who could imagine today somebody having the social awareness and discipline to actually not turn their radio on just because somebody else has their radio on?
Yeah.
Right. You can't imagine it. So let the technology handle it, right? Spread spectrum. Everybody turns it on. And as long as there's not too many in the same thing, they can hear each other over the shouting through the bar scene, coffee bar kind of noise, and they just managed to get the signal through. And
You
that's
still have that
going with it till someone proves me wrong.
Carl, you still have that problem with the FPV drone people because there's only so many video channels available.
Okay. Yeah, the ones with the goggles and like the little twirly antennas on there.
They have that problem. Someone will turn on their video transmitter and I'll blow them out and they'll crash.
Oh no.
How rude. Okay, but everybody's in the game for those, right? So they're still kind of I presume that they're good to each other.
Yeah, they're usually pretty good. I was flying at an indoor event, and so we had some FPV drone people doing the racing, and then we had some other guys just flying around, and one of the guys just flying on the side didn't realize the FPV people were doing that, and so he turned on his transmitter, and they came over and yelled at us.
Yeah.
So do they have a really simple physical system, or how do they manage that now?
I think they just coordinate it. You know, they'll have a race and they'll have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 guys racing and they coordinate, and everyone who's not racing keeps their transmitters off.
I think I might have remembered seeing that at some drone meetup. They just play maybe a spreadsheet and say, okay, Joe gets channel 1, Frank gets channel 3.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. But other than that, does it sound right? The story I gave
Yeah, it was sometime around the year 2000 that the first spread spectrum radios came out for RC.
Right. I think they do spread spectrum or the frequency hopping, so usually there's no major interference. There's a bind that happens, unlike before there are no dip switches or anything like that to select the channel. So you got to do like a binding between the transmitter and receiver. So there's also some kind of, I think, encryption. I don't know how much encryption, but there's a lot of these things going on. So I don't think it's any more a risk. But I did deal with all those frequencies before, like Carl was mentioning, 433 megahertz. There was 47 megahertz or 49 megahertz, 433, 315, which are still used in the key fobs for the cars.
72 megahertz,
2.4, right?
And then the ham guys were on 50.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of it was cool to me when the spread spectrum came out, because it made everything so much easier. And then it kind of bummed me out when I realized that then why the hell did I go through 3 months of getting a ham license when I don't? I mean, because that was the trick, right? There was relatively few people who had ham licenses. And I couldn't drive in those days. I had to wait for those rare times when Dad could drive me out to the flying field. So I was all excited to get a ham radio license because they could just walk up. Those frequencies were never used. You didn't have to go have many crystals to swap out on your radio. You could just grab a pin and you're off, and everyone else had to share.
Back in the day, did they expect you to carry around a bunch of crystals to give you the right frequency?
Yeah, that's what you had to do. Nobody expected. If you wanted to fly at a crowded field, that's what you had to do. And then you swap it in your receiver and your. Yeah, so think about that, right? How robust is it going to be to have some loose, like Arduino pin style crystal?
Yeah.
At 70 megahertz that you're swapping in, and then it's in your plane, right? With a fuel pet. There was no. I mean, the batteries were NiCad, and the motors were cobalt. They weren't even, the good motors were cobalt. They weren't neodymium like today's brushless. So they were really inefficient. So, and they were like vibrating.
Yeah, make sure
What do you mean cobalt motors? Man, you got to get the nitro in there, baby, and the 2-stroke.
That's it, nitro. Yeah, petrol.
So, Carl, what you're saying is I got yelled at for no reason.
Quite possibly. How recently was this?
Like about 2008, 2009 kind of time frame.
He might have been on the edge.
Yeah, there was still a lot of analog going on then.
I'll get the transmitter.
It's just changed dramatically, the whole. And then when the drones came on the scene, and they hobbified it. Yeah. The DX, that's a Futaba. You got a nice one, right?
No, that's Spectrum.
It's a Spectrum
transmitter.
DX5.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's DSM spread spectrum technology. So what you're saying is this does frequency hopping, and there was never any issue. I didn't need to go and sell my aircraft rated one.
Yeah.
Well, damn. Okay, well,
good bargain, huh?
Attention, guys.
All right.
You know what? Now I remember. Actually, I got this because the one that I got yelled at for was an old one, like rays waving around, and I think it was fixed frequency.
Yep, that's what that one is.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Yeah. And it's got a the only crystal I have is a 75.470 megahertz. So either it works or it doesn't work.
Yeah, that was it. I forgot that I had a previous one to this that was an aircraft one, and that's what I got yelled at for.
Yeah. Here's something funny. I had a Spectrum car radio, right? and I needed another receiver. So I went out and bought the cheapest one I could find because it was for a robot again. And it was an aircraft receiver. Well, the aircraft receiver doesn't work with the car radio, even though they were both the same brand, Spectrum, and they're both digital. Go figure.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
So can I use this radio about the competition again? Can I use this radio for safety switch?
Yes.
Like say turn it on and I'll leave the radio only when the robot is stuck or whatever. I need to pull it out. Or it's going to go into the river or something. I would turn on I'd turn off the switch and make it stop.
There's two ways, Raj. You could. I've got a 6-channel one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I take one of the channels that's, the channels aren't all, well, probably all 10 are not full. Some of them are switches. You have 2 settings.
Right.
You select one of those, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you put it in one mode,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have the output to that channel going to your Mega, and you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, if this is high, run. If this is low, stop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And the nice thing about that is if you do it right, is it's not a full kill switch. What it is, it's really a pause switch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if somebody, if you have a little kid run in front of your robot, you hit it and it stops the robot.
Okay.
And when the kid goes away, you can let it go and continue on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I plan to do it. Different people have different schemes. I know, like David Anderson uses a little key fob. I think it's a 433 kilohertz key fob that does the same thing. You push a button and it stops the robot. You push the button, and it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the other people are using. Kareem, what do you use? Kareem? Must be
All right, what was the question?
What do you use for your safety switch on your rover?
I use well, everything's Wi-Fi on mine.
Okay.
So there's a Wi-Fi channel between the driver station, which just sends the it's safe to move signal.
Yeah.
And so that's just the way I'm doing it. Okay. There's an access point on the robot itself.
Yeah.
Pat, what was that link that you said Kareem sent? I don't know, had something that would display points. Was that, did I miss something there?
I can display that when I get a chance again. Basically I tested it out and I grabbed the demo file. It would be easy to modify the demo file with the GPS coordinates and display it on Google Earth. So I think there's a couple of people ahead of me again here before I go.
Okay.
Not a big deal.
Who's going next?
I think it's me.
Okay,
So
Doug.
if you could pin my screen, I have a couple of things to show. First off, if I can get past the robot killer dog, this is the current robot. You can see I've attached an iPad to the top of a PVC thing. And there's the robot, which is the Robbie Senior that Harold gave me.
Robbie's looking good.
Yeah, he actually runs. We'll get to see that in a minute. This here is my driving screen. If I'm pointing at it correctly, you can see I've got my VNC here, which has my driving camera and my driving controls. This is the Skype view, which is the iPad is providing. That's what the iPad's showing me. That's what the iPad shows everybody else from the robot. So this is all set to go, and I'm going to drive this thing toward the dog. He's going to go spazzo. If you can make out this driving camera, I'm not sure if it's visible on the screen there. I'm going to move forward. The dog's going to say, "What the heck?" Turn right just a little bit. this robot wasn't really set up for carrying this much weight, so it's not really good at driving. You can see it starts to drift. It doesn't have a PID controller or anything like that. But hope nobody got vertigo from that move.
Cool.
Show the view of that robot moving here.
Good shot.
There it is, making its little turn. So it's basically all set up for my little talk. And let me pick up the robot killer dog. Hold on a second. My able assistant's going to take the robot killer. Okay. So that was basically all I had to show, is that it's functional and ready to go. And I'll be ready to show that. And on the 13th, they have to do a demo, and then the 27th we'll do the live thing. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Okay, that's great, Doug.
Yeah. The only problem, like I mentioned briefly, is that the motors are pretty weak, 6-volt motors, and that rig I've got on top of it, it doesn't drive straight. I couldn't get anything to do it to make it drive straight. I've tried offsetting one motor a little bit, and it'll drive straight for like 2 feet, and then suddenly decide to start veering off. So it doesn't have good grip on the floor and good motor control, but it's functional. And then it's a prototype, and
well, that's a hero, isn't it?
Better one.
Isn't that a
Robbie Senior?
Robbie Senior from
Radio Shack.
Radio Shack.
Oh, it's a Radio Shack. Okay, I was thinking it.
That was actually Tommy. Tommy made those. Somebody had a Tommy robot. I think it was John last week. They built the same group of robots, just a different one of the one he had.
Okay.
And it was when Radio Shack built it, or Tommy, it was basically, it wasn't autonomous. It was you record sending some commands to it, and then it could play them back, and it could talk. And
it had a cassette deck on there. I think that where you could record the commands in various bits and pieces.
Yeah. But now I've got it autonomous with the Raspberry Pi and the Arduino. I unfortunately unplugged all of the sensors, so none of the sensor stuff is working right now. But it will when I do the live thing. This is just a prototype to check out the VNC. One interesting thing that happened to me today twice while I was waiting my turn is that I lost my VNC connection. I don't know if that's because it timed out because I hadn't done something or what. I'm having to test that.
Oh.
I think it's because I have loose power connections on the Raspberry Pi inside. You may or may not have seen me playing with it behind me while other people were talking. The Raspberry Pi is inside the front case. I'm not quite sure if that's real visible now, but this piece here comes off. And the Raspberry Pi is inside there. And the power pins are just on the Raspberry Pi, pin 2 and pin 4, and I don't think they're very tight. I think they wiggle, and if they lose, of course, it loses the VNC and the whole Raspberry Pi stuff. So I've had to reboot it twice to pull that front off while we've been sitting here. I got to make that better for the live demo. That's all I had.
I was going to say might consider adding like a first alert in case, it falls over and, says, I've fallen over and I can't get up.
Probably 4 foot tall. The idea was to get the remote person screen up high. You don't want to have to look down on it.
Right.
So you want to get it up closer to eye level.
Yep.
I had to disable the speakers right now because it was feedback between the Zoom meeting and the Skype thing, and they were all bouncing each other. It's kind of fun. When I'm not on Zoom, it still echoes my dog. My dog will bark at it, and it barks back at him.
Kind of reminds me of a lot of the homeless people in Japan. They make these things. I think they call them weebles.
Yeah,
and
weebles wobble.
The thing was that's right. Weebles, they get knocked down, but they get back up because they're they're just made that way. And yeah, so that was, I don't know if that was the, if it's a cultural thing, that, if you're Japanese, if you get knocked down, you get back up, but yeah.
So whoever's
So,
next, Pat's
well,
waiting.
I just had an idea,
Okay.
Doug. If we're joining that meeting on the 27th,
Yeah.
maybe there might be some way you could telepresence us to them.
Well,
Well, you're going to be here, so that was
that.
not quite the same, is it?
Yeah. The iPad that's mounted on the thing, I considered having it do the Google Meet or the Zoom, whichever. I guess it's Zoom there. And then many people would be able to view that. Right now, one person can Skype to it. So they're the operator. And many people can VNC into the robot, but hopefully only one will be the driving. Right now, I haven't changed the password from the one I published many moons ago, but I think only Christopher remembers what it was.
Yeah.
He drove it. My production plan is that when you want to be the person in charge of the robot, you'll call into the meeting and they'll tell you the password over a closed connection so that you'll have it and they'll change it in between meetings.
Yeah, otherwise it'll, somebody will say, turn
they
it
want
on
to
and
turn it
walk
up,
it out
they
the door
go
and take it
forward.
home,
Yeah. It doesn't drive over bumps well. I've got those little, when the floor changes, it's got that little wooden thing that you have between them. It has a lot of trouble going over that with those little bitty motors.
Could you
You gotta
show
get ramming speed,
Ramming speed.
Yeah.
without any possible damage to your robot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you show us kind of like the wheels and stuff?
Possibly.
I don't want you to like have it, go kathud. I was just wondering if there was a way you could kind of show us what you're up against.
Well, the wheels are relatively good size. They're slippery because they're old 1980 something wheels. I'm hoping that you can hear me. I'm like looking the other way here.
Yep. I can hear you.
I hate stabbing myself with these pins. If I can get this back together enough to chance moving it. There we go. One in and two in. Okay. So I actually can pull this out.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I made it to be mobile so I could carry it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can bring this over closer to the camera. That's the underside. You can see there's 4 wheels, 2 motors. So the motors there's gearbox in there with plastic gears.
Yeah.
And that drives one set drives one side, one motor drives the other side.
Are those skids on the front besides there's the caster, but what are those 2 black knobs underneath there?
That's just skidding things.
Okay. So if it tilts a little bit, it'll catch on that instead of flipping over.
Yeah, they're about the same height as the caster, so they would ride up on something if you came up on it probably. But since that's not the drive wheels, it just helps it get over something.
They look kind of worn.
Everything's kind of worn. You can, you may or may not be able to see these rubber wheels here.
Hey man, you remember when you were 42 years old?
That's right. I don't know if that's in focus now, but it's got rubber wheels with some little slots on them to help them grip. And they drive reasonably good, but on my slippery floor here, it's probably not as good as it would drive on concrete.
Or how about carpet? Would it be okay on carpet?
And, if it gets up onto the carpet, it's fine. Getting over the lip is a trip. Like I can, let me point over here for a minute. I've got this rug on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
It goes up and over that rug real easy. but this wooden thing here,
Yeah.
it gets
Transition.
caught on that one unless it can get a running start.
That's the ramming speed.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't really have any carpeted parts of my house. We went with all hardwood. So
Yeah. We did that too.
if it got enough, I would imagine that the carpet would drag on the caster, and the wheels would have to overcome that thrust. And once again, they're pretty weak motors. They might have some trouble. This on the back, I've got a pretty hefty battery and a block of wood because I was channeling Pat to make sure that that would hold in place well. So I added that weight, and then added the weight of the PVC and the iPad up there. And none of it is very significant, but I'm sure it all adds up to making it a little bit less, more than what it expected to have to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of stuff inside. I added the power distribution board. It's on a piece of balsa type wood. And I've got another balsa type board that I hooked the Arduino to. So probably, I added somewhere between 1 and 2 pounds to it. But, it's just a prototype to test basically the VNC part and the intercommunication between the two CPUs.
Mm-hmm.
If I ever get this other one working, which I think I can now that I worked out the electrical parts. The one I was building based on the Instructables we first started with, I think I got my electronics mixed up and couldn't get anything to work anymore. So I just quit because I knew Roby was working. I just needed to finish him.
Yeah.
And I promised somebody that I would finish him, so I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that he's done and he's a telepresence robot, I have to go back to making him what he was supposed to be later, which is without the telepresence, wandering around the house, causing trouble for the poor dog.
So otherwise, you're going to have them randomly start up and chase the dog down, huh?
Well, I try not to do that. I'm trying to get the dog more used to robots. I mean, I bought that Roomba, and I keep trying to get him used to that, and he's getting somewhat used to the Roomba, but he still hates Roby for some reason. Yeah. I don't know if Roby's emitting a bunch of sounds I can't hear that he can. I don't know. He just hates him. So I'll let Pat go. He had something he was waiting to talk about, and it's getting late up there.
It's just dark up there, isn't it? I don't know. Is it dark? Is it dark or light this time of year?
It's what is it? 10:15. It's an hour past dark.
Okay.
So, I had a question. Number one, does Raj get a gold star for demoing his robot?
Sure. Raj.
Rob? Yeah, I got him. I got him down here.
Yeah. Okay. He did have a rolling on the ground, so I was just curious.
Yeah.
I didn't take the notes.
Thank you.
And then the other one I had is Kareem had mentioned a KML file. So I quickly did a search on a KML file, found I found a website which tells you how to create it, what needs to be in it. And basically just to give a quick demo here.
Is that typically put on like an SD card?
I did this from my computer. I just downloaded the demo file.
Okay.
And basically, you could quite easily change this to. Can everybody see that text file?
Yeah.
So there's the GPS coordinates in this file. So the rest of it is basically some formatting info and stuff like that, colors. But there's the elevation, the latitude, and the longitude format. So if you can get this out of an SD card or off your computer, say, if you have a Raspberry Pi and you save all your coordinates, it's quite easy to load them into this sheet. And from there, this is what the guy has. So he's on Google Earth. He's created the elevation way above the ground. But he's got 11 points in his file. and there's 11 points along the arc for the crossing. So I think it'd be quite easy to zoom out into an area, and I think it would be more rather zoom in, but follow the path your robot took.
Mm-hmm.
So just a quick update.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's actually it's very easy to do, and just after the fact, grab your data, put it in the right format, and Bob's your uncle.
Yep.
I use them for both.
KMS file, is that the correct?
KML.
KML. Okay.
Tutorial I found.
Called Keystone Markup language, I think. Keystone was the company that made Google Earth.
And Pat, I jumped in after you, but then my tab somehow got muted. I don't know how a tab gets muted, but it did. It shut down all audio from you, so I couldn't get any. I'd asked if that was the sort of thing you had in mind, and so anyway, no, I'll ask that since you're on.
Yeah, I tried to answer you, but obviously you weren't hearing us. And to say that I wasn't looking for live data, I was looking for post-run data, basically. So that, first I'm going to try to walk it. I'm going to see what kind of results I get with my GPS. Then when I'm running, I'll record the data, and then I'll check as well to see how it was doing on the actual robot itself.
You can obviously play a bag file back,
It's just as I showed you guys that text file.
Yeah, that looks real simple. That's great.
It's real simple, and you just drop it in and go.
Did you? Oh yeah, and you've got the link to it. I like that. Great.
Yeah, I put a link in there. It's a tutorial. It shows you how to make the file and how to display it on Google Earth.
Cool. Thank you.
So I'm hoping to, before I start traveling 1,000 feet with the robot, or 300 feet at a time or whatever, to be able to go out in the back park here, and the layout of the houses and everything around the park, so it makes it easy to check and say, hey, yeah, it followed pretty closely to where my robot thought it was actually when I walked it.
I usually use Google Earth to plan my navigation routes, and I just use the drawing tools on there to draw a path or a polygon or something like that, and then you can save it to your My Places and export it, and it'll export it.
Okay.
And then you can compare your planned route with your actual KML.
So I used Google Earth or Google Maps when I was doing some testing last year, and basically you can, between 2 points, you can get the GPS coordinates and the direction and distance.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was using to punch into my robot for my waypoints. And it managed to make it all the way to turn in and almost hit the garage. That was about it last year. So this year we're hoping to do better. We've got a GPS that is working well, and we'll confirm that the robot is behaving better before we give it a road test.
Yep. Cool. Who's next?
I have a question for Kareem, or anyone who's worked with Wi-Fi for communication. Kareem, are you still there?
I'm here.
All right. So, what kind of range do you get on your Wi-Fi and also the bandwidth? I'm looking to transmit video or Wi-Fi on a ground robot kind of setup. Just curious, what kind of modules do you use? What kind of bandwidth do you get?
I haven't honestly profiled it. I haven't had a need to. It's
So would you
been
like get a
sufficient to my
live
needs, and I
video?
haven't tried to generalize it for other people's use in different environments. Usually, it's pretty open line of sight. Well, we have a lot of trees on the property as well, but they don't seem to cause a problem. My guess is I'm sure I've got at least 300 feet in radius, probably between the driver station, which is my control station, and the robot almost at all times. Sometimes I get dropouts, and I'm not sure why that is. And it may be, I think it's more likely the somewhat low quality access point. It's actually a hotspot.
And what kind of bandwidth are you getting? Are you transmitting video at all, or is it just telemetry?
Yeah, we can transmit video. We have a camera on board. Robot.
And this is
don't notice
normal
frames.
Okay. Any normal router, or is this like a specific router that you purchased that has high power?
It does have. It has 4 antennas. I don't know if it's still available. I can look and send it to the email list if I find it. It was just something I found on Amazon. And the main idea is that it's a it's a hotspot, but it looks more like a normal Wi-Fi hub. And it was basically to get the broadband connection from. Actually, I don't even remember who my provider is at the moment. Might be AT&T, and then be able to get internet connection to the robot, and then use the Wi-Fi just to connect the robot in the driver's station, and some other peripherals.
Okay.
Has anybody used those? I think they're called an ES32 Cam. It's
yeah, I got a couple of them sitting here waiting for me to do something with.
How about you? You got them? Do they?
Yeah. I haven't really tested them as far as length. I know they're not super fast frame rates or anything. So, and I thought there was a frames per second indication somewhere on the, on the screen. I want to say maybe it was like 15 frames per second.
Yeah.
So not super fast, not super high res.
Yeah. Raj, that might be an inexpensive alternative to whatever you're trying to do. I think you can get 2 of them for $25 or something like that.
Yeah, I was looking for a high speed, long range communication or Wi-Fi. I'm looking at something in terms of about 2 miles range on ground, not in air. This is for another application, but just was checking. This is for racing, race car on the track, and we're planning to have GPS and a bunch of sensors on the car relay back to the pit, and we're looking for about 1.8 or 2 mile radius so that it has enough to cover for ups and downs and blocks, or something in between the pit and the car. So I was wondering if Wi-Fi is a good option. I found a bunch of bridges, but they were all directional antennas, and none of them were omnidirectional. And all the omnidirectional antenna ones were a few feet, maybe 1,000 feet range, not beyond that. And we're looking to see if we can also send. We at least want to send telemetry, but I'm also looking to see if we can send video if we have enough bandwidth. That's
You're not going to get Wi-Fi at those distances without it being directional.
Right.
It's just not.
Right. The other
something else.
Take this directional and put a motor on the car, but then the car is always accelerating, braking, and taking all the shocks. So wasn't sure it's a good idea to make the antenna point towards the pit, and also the pit times not to start tracking the car based on the GPS signals. But I think it's a project on its own, a couple of months.
What about using a cellular connection like a Wi-Fi hotspot?
That's an option. The other problem that I got to know is a lot of these racetracks, there's just not much network around. and you don't always get a reliable 4G connection. A lot of these are in remote areas where sometimes you get 3G and very spotty connections.
There are,
Yeah,
I think, if you have an internet signal, there were, I think T-Mobile had these concepts of femtocells or something. They actually made some that were relevant for the home. There's a guy, some of you might remember Stan from the Makerspace before they booted him. He actually, I think, had arranged for one of those pico or femtocells. And what they were was that they were basically a mini cellular
Sounds
base station
Yeah.
that you, as long as you had a good internet connection, then you could use it as a gate or an access point for cellular, and that might be a way where you could take that. And I don't know if they would offer like sometimes you could run a router without an internet connection and still use it for its radio, right? So maybe they work in that way. So I would do maybe a little research on femtocell or picocell. The one thing I'd mention though is whatever you look at for this long range environment, you got two problems, I think. One is just the basic RF path propagation, power bandwidth distance kind of stuff, just raw that. But then the next one is protocol. And for that, I have this story. I might have mentioned it to some of you before, but my very first robot called Technical Debt, I'll leave it to the audience to understand why I called it Technical Debt. But the very first robot that I did was distributed, and it streamed from a basic Pi camera over Wi-Fi to a laptop, and the computer vision algorithms and what to do was on the laptop, and then it streamed commands back to the Pi. Like go impulse, just blindly move for a quarter of a second in this direction. So you would think that the hardest part there would be streaming video. So what I did was I would carry around my own access point, right? One of these. I mean, what a nice dual band access point. I went out of my way to put a dual band dongle on this stupid little robot, Technical Debt. And the damn thing, it worked great at my house. It worked fantastic. And then I'd take it to like the Makerspace, or the worst was actually the Fort Worth Science Museum. We had a little Maker Faire kind of booth there. And it was okay until it opened. And for the first hour when we were setting up, we got in there early. And then as people started showing up, it got progressively worse. It just stopped working. And I think, Ray, you and I were there that day. And well, after an hour of trying to reboot things and reattach and losing signal, I said, screw it. Well, I got nothing better to do. We're here for the next 4 hours showing a demo. So what I did was I drug out, instead of that $160 thing I just dropped on the floor, I drug out this $30 TP-Link travel router, single band 802.11b, fired it up, and it worked for 5 hours straight. It had one dropout the whole time, right? Here I was thinking I'd have to go to 5 gigahertz, and this thing, I mean, it was in 10 feet or 15 feet of the robot. It didn't work. And then this thing just worked like a champ all day. And the best thing I can figure is that it's cheap. It didn't have all these fancy schmancy protocols trying to negotiate and hop and bounce around and everything. It's just your basic, simple, not trying to get too fancy with all the congestion modifying protocols of the newer whatever. Just worked like a champ. So somebody in the past on this call, I think, has mentioned keep it simple, stupid. So whatever solution you get for your long range, solve the RF propagation thing, power bandwidth and distance, but then keep the protocol simple at least, or be aware that whatever protocol you pick, it might act differently on race day when all the teams are there versus practice day when it's just you and your robot and your whiz bang expensive radio gear.
Yeah, I was gonna say, go up to TMS and find out what the real race car teams use. So
Well, some
it
of them
might
do.
help you.
Like I've seen, like these. I saw them for a while. I was looking at this for a work project years back, and like these TV broadcasters, the storm chasers and stuff. They're driving around in the worst conditions, and they're generally having pretty good streams. But what you can do is find these broadcast things, and you'll actually plug in 3 or 4 radio phones or radio modems, one for each carrier, maybe a couple for each carrier, and then this module will do channel bonding. So it'll actually think of it like Tor, but for radio propagation, right? So it'll break up your packets like Scotty and Enterprise right into these random little bits and distribute them across all these different radio channels and reassemble them at the other end. And it's like, it doesn't matter if a couple of them drop out, because there's enough bits across all the channels that are bonded that your video will get through. But then of course you've got 5 or 6 cellular modems to pay for.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, imagine what the race car drivers.
I thought the
use is
TMS
not
guys.
cheap.
I thought the TMS guys, how they solved this particular problem was, if you ever been to a race, at least that's what I was told, and I hadn't investigated, so I could be wrong. If you ever been to a race, you'll see there's a helicopter a couple hundred feet up in the air over the top of the middle of the field, and all that's there the entire race. It doesn't move. And so I believe what they're doing there is they're bouncing or channeling, relaying all their signals through that helicopter, because it can see every bit of the race, every bit of the track, line of sight.
And it's up in the air. It doesn't have this ground propagation to worry about.
Yeah. So just get you a helicopter.
There you go.
A drone. Actually, I think there are solutions out there now for exactly this purpose, where you can just put your Wi-Fi access point on a drone, hoist it up in the air, let it fly over the course, and now you got your not perturbed by ground propagation issues. Longer range.
Some helium balloons might be a good option there.
Yeah.
Of course, then the drone's only got a maximum flight time with its battery.
Right. So that's what I was saying. Bunch of helium balloons, or a big helium balloon carrying a router and a power bank.
Yeah, helium balloon and a tether cable.
Or the blimp, right? You can
there
get
you go.
yourself a RC
Just
blimp.
get a tethered weather balloon.
Right.
And then don't do it in Class B airspace, or the FAA will come after you. But okay.
Yeah.
But we do want to see when you get it going. It sounds like an interesting project.
Yeah.
Coming 11 or 10 around here.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably a small percentage of the whole budget, like for a Formula One car. It's like, okay, what's the radio link going to cost?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, when you go through a few $100,000 worth of tires, what's the big deal about piloting a helicopter? Paying.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
it's probably a shared resource between all the teams. So.
Oh, you think? I don't know.
They only had one helicopter. That's
Oh.
all I saw up there. So,
Like the microphone stand at press conferences, everybody gets into the feed.
well, they're operating on a different frequency. So in fact, they rent headgear for everybody that goes in there. So if you want to listen to your favorite driver, you can tune in to their frequency during the entire race and go through that. And I'm like, okay, great. What's to stop my team from listening in on your channel? And I'm thinking there's probably some public channels and some private channels, or they've got some code words arranged for various things that are going on. And it's not like you're going to hide very much. You see them going around. This guy's going fast. This guy's going slow. They all got about the same car. Some of them got some tweaks that make them go faster, because that's the way all those things are designed. Literally, your car has to fit in this box at a certain weight and a certain thing and a certain height and all that kind of stuff. What it comes down to is how creative were you to work within those rules to get the most juice out of the thing, right? And so it's not like, okay, he's behind you, now he's beside you, okay, now I think you can go now, or something. I don't. The pitting and all that kind of stuff is probably crucial on that whole deal. But I think they probably work out a few code words for that kind of stuff, and you don't know what they are. And hey, you need to pit in 2 laps. We're going to say Buster. All right, got it. Change it from race to race, and you're, just like baseball hand signals. I mean, once, whatever. Never mind. So since I'm talking, I can go ahead and go a little bit more. I don't want to cut anybody off, though. Everybody good? Hold up. Sorry. I spent the weekend rebuilding my lab here for twitching. I got me some new hardware to be able to doing it. So my streaming should be way more stable. And so I've been working on BB Pi here, and a couple things about BB Pi. I'll show you the stuff on the side. If you look here, I do have stuff that actually moves. So I've got this little cheap dollar. Yeah, I got these dollar servo controllers that cost me $3 to get shipped. But anyway, that's how it works. So I do have these some crappy servos, but I'm really just looking at them to move a little bit. Like this one servo from Hobby Lobby can't get out of its own way. Maybe that's me. I need to lube up some stuff to make it a little easier to deal with. And so I'm checking some movement there. And for some reason I can touch it. Well, I can't quite touch over it, which is good. So he can't get himself off this thing. I do know that Hobby Lobby and going to Hobby Lobby and asking for a standard servo will get you a deer in the headlights look. They're like, what's a standard servo? Okay, it's not the high speed, high strength, crazy servo. Okay, what size? Standard servo. So they handed me its box on it when the guy said he didn't know what a standard servo was, and it says HS311, the model number, standard, right? And it just said it on the side of the box, and I'm like, okay. So anyway, the fun. I was playing around with this, and I've got some other ideas of. I'm finding out that I don't know what standard things that our guy that developed the BB Pi worked on, but there's going to be a number of changes, and I made a number of changes to BB, and you can see part of them underneath with all the things where things are slotted in. For instance, this 298N I slotted in here. That's not coming out. I mean, it's slotted in there, went perfect, slid in, and I'm like, oh, it's a good thing I can get to all these because I'm having to cut off plastic to get those to come out of that thing because it was such a tight fit. That was really cool. I was happy about that actually, and everything else is going. I've got some ideas. I need to change how the servos get mounted in here, but that's pretty good. I like how these wheels. I mean, because if you're looking at this right here as I go up and down. Pretty much that wheel does go up in a straight line. It's wobbling around a bit because that standard servo doesn't tighten all the way down, and so that gets to wobble. I got to do something with that. Not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I just got some of this going. I'm going to get some of the electronics, some of the programming going, and we'll work out some mechanical business on it a little bit better. But I'm pretty. Ooh, look at that. That's moving around way too much. I don't know about all that. I don't know if I like that. But so I got some stuff to work on, but I think that's pretty cool. Let's see what else. That's about all the things I got going on, other than the stuff that I've changed as far as hardware and software and that kind of stuff. Pretty happy about that. I did get asked today. So how many of you work at a job as you're coding away, you're doing your normal day-to-day job, and a guy walks in with a briefcase and says, this is our nuclear football briefcase, and I've got a couple of flashing lights in a dark room, and I want to do something more creative. What can you do? And I'm like, oh, is that my new subtask to do while in my free time at work? Well, yes, it is. And so I think I've got some RGBs and some batteries and a couple of buck converters so I get enough current to power all the things. And we're gonna make it glowy RGB thing. So and that's pretty cool. It happens on occasion. And so I'm like, all righty. There was another thing I think I wanted to ask somebody. I forgot really what it was. Not really what it was, but yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm in the middle of doing. I'm trying to improve my audio, so hopefully my voice sounds a little better today. My Mr. Big Head has its own channel, doing stuff with that, and yeah, that's been playing around with the DFW 3D printing club, 3D printing get together. Guys are pretty cool. Doing some fun things. But besides all that, this is what I really want to show you. Is BB? Let me power him off so he doesn't go crazy. In order for me to be able to hold on to BB and do all the wheels and stuff, I decided that I wanted to build BB a stand. And I'm actually kind of proud of this stand because I mounted it up in 360. And if you'll look at it on the side, I cut some stuff in there. Now I know that looks like a pair of pants, but that was unintentional, but that's kind of how it looks. You know, you put BB on there and he's like he's wearing a pair of pants or something. Hey, get out of there. You got a pair of pants going on or something. And put his name. Here, let's see if that shows it in that. Put his name there in the deal. And so had to redesign it a couple of times. And so, but I'm pretty happy about that. I got a nice stand going on. Who knows? This may actually be something that I can print a kit or something and tell people what to go get, and they can get the electronics and do this stuff. That is an ongoing thing. I know almost everybody on this channel has a 3D printer. If somebody wants me to print them something, all I ask is that you reimburse me plastic costs, and I'll be happy to print it for you. But I know almost everybody here does have that, and so I know it's a safe. I know that's a safe offer.
Hey Harold, I got a 3D printing question for you. PLA, is it usually the hot end? Is it usually 210 or 240
for PLA?
Degrees? Yeah.
PLA is somewhere. It most PLA that I've seen tops out at 220. I've seen some that do 25. So if you're blowing PLA at 240, one of two things: you're really not doing 240, or you're just melting the hell out of that PLA. I can't imagine you having a good print at 240. Now it could be that you're printing with something slightly different than PLA, but if it's marked PLA on the side, like there's this PLA tough, and there's other PLAs with a different mixture that will go higher. But most of the PLA that I see that most people get, it tops out at about 220.
Okay. Yeah, when I go down to, a lot of them seem to recommend 210, but when I do, it doesn't like fully melt it. And it'll actually pull it off the print bed and make a mess.
Yeah. So what brand of PLA do you have? I mean,
Micro Center.
Oh, the Micro Center one? Well, that's what I'm using. That's what I use on mine. This is PLA. This is PLA Plus, not PLA. I like the PLA Plus a lot better. I think it lays down better. And I'm running this at 215 to 210 on it.
Okay.
So what I would do, I would get in your hot end and get an external thermometer measurement, touchless thing. Yeah. Make sure you're indeed running what you think you're running.
Yeah. The sensor may be off or something.
Sensor may be off.
Yeah.
Sensor may be off. That's where I would start. Because you're right. Okay. When you get it too cold, it's not going to stick. You get it too hot. I can't imagine 240 for PLA, man. That's really hot.
Yeah.
That's really hot.
It doesn't smoke or anything, but
no, but yeah. I was talking to a friend that he did turn up he had some PLA from ZYL Tech down in just north of Houston.
Oh, Zyltech, yeah.
Zyltech, yeah. And he really loves that stuff, by the way. and he's printing that PLA at like 225.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, there are PLAs out there that print hot,
Yep.
but the Micro Center stuff certainly doesn't.
Yeah, I was
Or it
thinking.
should be anyways.
Oh, my printer's probably 5 years old now, and maybe the hot end design wasn't so great or something, or it needed to.
Well,
You know.
I'm not a Micro Center salesperson, although I've apparently played one a few times while I've been in the store. But they've got a bunch of open box. If you go on their website and look,
Yep.
they got an Ender 3 Pros, and every now and then they'll have a V2, which I happen to snag. But they got a bunch of open box stuff. Some of them are complete, some of them are missing parts. That Ray, I think you have all the skills necessary if you would like to get you a new printer. And this printer's been printing really well for me. I got a V2, and it's been printing really well over here for me. And although here's the funny thing, everybody gets up and says, "Man, I've leveled my bed. I put my level on that. Man, it's dead level, and it still doesn't work." And blah 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 blah. Well, they missed the point.
Yep.
Because it needs to be, and leveling is like not the right term. The CNC people call it tramming, not leveling, meaning your crossbar is in the same is in a parallel plane to your bed. Yep. And it doesn't matter if you're off kilter, because I'm printing some really excellent prints, and I was sitting down lower watching some Westworld or some other stupid thing. Oh, by the way, Sandman, the series that just came out on Netflix, awesome series. But I'm standing here, I'm looking at it. I've been printing all over the thing, and I'm like, wait a minute. My bed probably has a 3-degree tilt to it, and it's trammed to my cross beam, and I'm printing 90-degree perfect setup prints just like it's supposed to. You know, so my bed's not level, and it's print just fine. It's just what they really mean is it's like I didn't put a bubble level on nothing. So it print pretty well. I mean, so if you're looking to replace your 5-year-old printer, I mean, mine's sitting behind me that I built, and I'm still going to use it to do a few things that I ain't doing because the bed's slightly bigger. But this thing here has been printing a little slower, but it's been printing really well. For $160, I think I got my money's worth out of it.
Yeah.
I think I did.
I just shared a link from Micro Center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ray, this is for you if you want to buy a Micro Center to Creality Ender Pro. It's just $100. Use this link, put in your details, and you can take a printer home for $100.
Yeah,
and it's really good. I've been using it.
Yeah, if you have, as long as Micro Center does have your email address combo with your cell phone number already registered as a customer, you can get that coupon. I unfortunately have burned mine and burned my wife's getting other things than a $100 printer.
It's a get you in the door incentive, huh?
Exactly. And now that's where I believe all these open box printers are coming from, because I was talking to one of the real official sales. He had a Micro Center badge and all that kind of stuff. I like to stick things on my package as I'm going out so they get credit for it. So he's a real Micro Center person, and he was joking. He goes, "Yeah, we got so many of these Ender Pro 3s because people did that $100 deal. Got it home, looked at it, opened the box, and went, 'What the hell is this?' and freaked." And maybe they pulled some out, and maybe they didn't, maybe they tried and couldn't. I don't know what it was, but they box it back up and bring it back. So when I looked a couple of weeks ago, they had 25, 30 of these open box things from somewhere between 109 to about 160 on the thing. I'm thinking about going down and buying the 109 ones to make sure it's got all the Servo Motors. Between that and one of their printer control boards in there and some V channel, I think that's more than $109. Put it all in parts.
Yep.
So I don't know. So anyway, that's me just rambling on. And so that's about all I got, I think. So next, whoever's next.
Ray, I was having all sorts of trouble with the 3D printer. I have an Ender 3 V2, and couldn't get it to print decently. It would lift in the corner, all sorts of problems. I I leveled the bed following their routine with a paper under the nozzle and whatever. And I ended up putting a BL Touch on it.
Oh yeah, I sprung for that too. I got the Creality version of the BL Touch. That thing rocks.
Yeah, that's what I put on it. Huge difference.
I don't worry about it. You know, I turn it on and go.
It measures the bed, and if it's, if you're off a few thousandths of an inch or whatever it is, it just takes care of it for you.
Yep. So it takes like several measurements in a grid and
takes 9 measurements on the grid.
Yeah.
Well, I was a bit overzealous there, Pat. I went to the Jury's UI, so it does a lot more stuff. If you've not installed that firmware, Jury's UI, I have to look it out. It does a lot more stuff, and I do a 5x5 grid, so I've got a more accurate grid. It takes it, I don't know, a minute and a half, maybe 2 to measure the grid every time, right? Not a big deal. After everything gets heated, and there's a lot more functionality. Like, do you know on your card right now, your SD card, that's where it stores its settings. So if you ever had to swap out your SD card, you've lost all your settings to your Ender 3 because it's on that SD card, not in the EEPROM. The Jury's UI,
that's on there.
Yeah, the Jury's UI is that firmware does a lot more, and it's got some cooler icons, and your screen looks better, and all that kind of stuff. Let me see if I can look up that link while I'm talking. Since I talked about it, I'll post it in the chat. In fact, I'll post you a YouTube video of a guy showing you how to do all the stuff that I used on all that kind of stuff. Let me go look for it. I'll shut up for a while and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm using the stock firmware with just the BL the BL Touch Pro bat on.
Yeah, you should probably be doing. I like doing that. I truly do like doing that stock firmware thing, but in this case, I think they're doing you a disservice. Let me get.
Somebody mentioned high temp PLA. Does that mean that that high temp PLA is going to do better in like Texas sun on a dashboard in a car?
Maybe. Not the stuff we've had this last week, though. I don't think, but maybe.
Does anything last in the Texas sun on inside a car on a normal hot day?
I thought ABS was supposed to do pretty good, or is that fallacy?
ABS will do okay. Nylon will do fine, but you got other problems where you'll have Dave's battery situation. You don't want to have a lithium battery sitting in the car probably, and leave it there and forget about it.
I've seen that happen with laptops.
Yeah.
Some people used to bring laptops back to work. And, hey, Pat, can you check this out? What's wrong with my laptop? Was it in your car? Your computer's a half-inch thicker than it used to be.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone use PETG, PETG for 3D printing for high temperature Texas weather?
I haven't printed with PETG in a long time. I got some over here that I haven't printed. That stuff is you got to print slow. It's extra sticky. It's it takes a little bit different look on how to print that. You're not gonna just get it.
Yeah, I think it was like 240 degrees C, and the bed should be at 70 degrees. I just started experimenting with it. It seems to be pretty good, much better than ABS. ABS, everything would warp and get out of place.
With ABS, you got to have an enclosure. If you don't have if you don't have an enclosure, you're fighting a losing battle.
Right. So I thought the PETG was an alternative for ABS, similar temperature profiles, but you don't need a enclosure to print, and it's food safe, I guess.
Yeah. And there was also some arguments that ABS probably is a micro particle generator that couldn't be probably not healthy to breathe. So
right.
Yeah. Those touch sensors that you were discussing, they overcome one of the biggest problems that I've seen inexpensive printers have. Is the bed isn't really flat. if you look, even if you take a micrometer, dial indicator, and you move the bed underneath it, you'll find that a lot of them have a dip in the center. Even with glass plates, they'll have a dip in the center. It's
Really?
because, and that you can't overcome that. Do you know what I mean? Unless you actually have some sort of active correction. Yeah.
Shut up. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm real interested in this software that you're talking about, Harold.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting there. I've got to log in on it. Since I got this new computer, it doesn't know all my logins and LastPass. Let me go look at DV3D, I think is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like hi.
So how this firmware you're talking about, is it better than Marlin? How does it compare with it?
Well, it's an offshoot of Marlin.
Okay.
And it's made specifically for the Ender 3. And it's already binary.
Yeah.
It's a binary thing. Basically, you're throwing you get a blank SD card. You put this binary on it that you're dealing with. You're going to have to open up your printer to figure out which. Here comes a video link of it, and failed to send. Resend. Really? It's not letting me send a YouTube link? I have no permissions?
Oh, there's other YouTube links up there in the chat.
It says you failed to send, resend, or delete it. Let me see this. Hello? Yeah, I cannot send to a message.
That's really strange. If you email it to me, I'll put it in. But there's a switch that says let everyone send messages, and now Harold's coming back in.
It kicked me out.
That's rude.
It is rude.
And if you try and paste again, because like if you look, Doug was able to send to YouTube, and I did earlier. There you go.
There you go.
I got that, and what I'll do is also, because he put a link in there, I will go find that link directly to the thing. Gyres UI. And that link is a little bit of a video. The YouTube link, it'll take you through installing the very first of that for the V2, but they also got them for the Ender 3 Pro, and it opens up a lot more possibilities. For instance, one of the things that Pat, you probably had a hard time doing and saving is after you do your bed level, you need to do a Z offset because it doesn't go low enough, right? And that Z offset with the standard firmware is saved to your SD card, not to the firmware in the printer. So you got to hold on to the SD card or something along those lines to make all that happen. This now saves that firmware directly to the motherboard, the EEPROM and the motherboard. So now you won't lose that. Also, you don't have some of the abilities to move stuff around and do other stuff. It opens up a lot more stuff. He goes into the video for most of that on how all that works. It's real simple, real easy. And I don't know if you know it, but if you got a V2, that controller has an SD card inside of it as well for its firmware, and shows you how to update that firmware as well and get new icons and new stuff, and makes it all much cooler. I was struggling like, no, I don't need all that. I don't need all that. And I was playing around with it, doing some things, and I saw something like, what the heck? Let's try it. And before it's all said and done, I had to try it a couple times, because when you go update the firmware, sometimes it can't read the card or misreads a card, and so you just turn it off and make sure your card's seated and turn it back on again, and voila, it got it. And so it was way easier than I thought it was going to be. And somebody else has done all the compiling and all that sort of stuff. You're just uploading basically .bins or .hexes on this thing into it.
I'll give it a try and see how it goes.
Give it a try.
Yep.
And because here's the worst thing that's going to happen. You don't like it? Guess what? Creality has all this firmware on their website, so you put it back the way it was.
Yeah, I've got a copy of my firmware that's on there, so I just reload it.
Yeah, just reload it.
Copy my SD card, so.
Yeah. And, you know, these are, I was really surprised, and I've been really like, oh, you Ender 3 people, whatever, you know. And compared to what I did, it's back over my shoulder. Oh, that shoulder, yeah. You know, I built that all and baked it all from, they gave me a kit of parts, but that was all screwing everything in. This Ender 3, the base is already done. You're putting on the uprights and the stuff that would keep it from, you know, shipping efficiently. And that's what you're putting on there. And I was pretty happy.
That's what mine was. I think Doug and I have the same printer. It's a Malon 150, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got two of them.
You got two of them.
You got two of them.
Yeah, I have one in an enclosure which does ABS, and one that's just PLA. It's just set up for PLA. The PLA one I use 95% of the time. Very rarely do I use the ABS one because it just takes longer. So like, especially when I'm you know, the way things work. Okay, you make this design, it doesn't work. You need a big, so you modify the design. You print it again. It's close, but it didn't work. So you do it again, you print it, and it's great. Now you got to say, well, I've got one in ABS. Why do I want one in PLA? You know, I mean, I got one in PLA. Why do I want to redo it in ABS? Well, usually the parts aren't really that critical. You know, I mean, it's not like I'm going to be out in the sun or anything. So I just choose the one that I've got. Now, but when I use the weird materials, because the one that I do the PLA on has the standard hot end. The one that I do the ABS in has an all metal one. It has what is Swiss made or whatever they call it, that brand. That's really worked nice.
Micro Swiss.
Is
it Micro Swiss?
I can't remember. That's Swiss something, and but it's all metal, and just that's the way to go.
And you can print. You've got a direct drive, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because with Bowden tubes, you want to try to retract more, but the problem with that, when an all metal one, you retract that stuff up where now it's cooled off just enough to start clogging things up, and it's just goes downhill from there. Yeah. I've been. How do I know? Well, yeah, I've kind of been through that thing.
Yeah. Well, I can say this. You know, I think I paid $150 for one and $200 for the other one, and they've been champs. I've just,
it's awesome.
I haven't had any problems with them.
It's awesome.
Probably looks like the Stone Age, right? It has a monochrome, graphics display and there's no icons. It's just, crude text and sure. Harold's has, multicolor, nice looking graphics.
When I upgraded the graphics on this, which somebody else has already done it, you just have to give it the graphics, right? It's got gradient colors on things and 3D rendered looking stuff, and I'm like, this is too pretty. I don't know if
he's got icons. We don't even have icons.
Yeah, icons. No, don't have those at all.
Well, you can have them too. But because I shirked off most of that because a lot of the low end, well, the higher end too, but most of I'm really impressed with Micro Center these days. only because of their selection of materials that they have and the colors they have in there, and the availability of parts and other things. Like, yeah, they marked Creality on there, but let's just say bed springs are bed springs. You know, you need some. There's better bed springs and worse bed springs, and they've got a good set of bed springs available in a bunch of them. You know,
Yeah, I love their filament.
You know, and their filament. Yeah, I really do like it a lot, and they've got lots of other things. I mean, they'll have a few stepper motors. They got a few control boards. You know, so if you blow out a control board, they have something. They got a lot of Big Tree Tech stuff, and that's decent stuff. You know, as far as that level of product goes. And so I was really impressed by that, because I'm telling you, when I first started all this 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago now, I mean, you had to order it or go by Tanner's and hope he had it, you know. And now at least they've standardized enough that it's gotten it's still not a commodity thing that everybody thought it was going to be at the year 2000, but it's getting closer. You know, it's not like the inkjet printer you can take home from Walmart, set it up, turn it on, and your mom make it do prints. It's not quite that. It's not quite ready for that yet.
Well,
So do those talk?
Creativity one was good enough that I let I recommended it to my daughter so she was able to get it to work without any, because the worst thing I have is, you know, I recommend something like that and then I have to go over there every week to fix it.
You become tech support, right?
Yeah, and that didn't work. That she had no problems with it. Talking about Micro Center, you know what they had the other day? They actually had a Raspberry Pi.
Yes, they did, and I got one.
Was that a 4 or a?
The one I saw was a 2 gig.
Now
Did you get it?
4 gigs? Yeah. And I didn't even need one, but they had them in stock, so I bought one. So
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I didn't buy one.
Yeah, when I got it,
but I saw it. I said I couldn't believe it. You know.
What was the price?
It was straight up price.
$45, I think.
Yeah, it was like $54 or whatever that price rate is in for the
yeah. 45 is the 2 gig. I don't know what the 4 gig is.
I forget what it was, but it was retail price.
Yeah.
I also found Raspberry Pi Pico's W, which is the new one with wireless. They're like in stock for like $6 or $5.
Yeah. I got 2 from DigiKey. I haven't played with them yet, though.
I'm in the same boat there, right? I got a couple just because I could get them, and then we're gonna play with them.
Well, I just got an H, and which is the ones that they put the headers on, and they did something that I didn't realize. They put a debug. One of the reasons I didn't want it, the headers was no big deal, but what they put in is they standardized on a new debug connector. And so I said, well, I'll have one that I can use for debugging, and then the rest of it, I just use the ones without the header. Well, when I got it home, I couldn't find. I had to go to Amazon and order the cables to go to the debugger because I didn't have one. So that made that first one pretty expensive. And I noticed that on the old Picos, they have a different format. So the headers on the old ones, even though they've standardized the new header, the old ones are not compatible with the new header. So the old headers you probably could just use standard, 100 mil header pins on it. But the new one is the JSP 1 millimeter 3-pin header. So if anybody needs one, I know where they can get one cheap. I'd probably give you one. Because I think I had to buy 10. So, well, guys, it is now officially
10:13.
10:13. This one's been a long one. Anybody got anything they want to say?
Well, I
Good
guess
night.
just, last week I was asking you guys for tips on how to make RTK work because I couldn't. I got my F9P would go into float mode, but it wouldn't go into RTK fixed mode. Well, I got to the bottom of that, and so I can report on that. The problem was EMI interference. So I had a 100 millimeter disc like spark fun cells, the ground plane, and what I was doing by default was sitting there on top of the electronics box for the robot that has the RPi and the ESP32 directly under it, and it will only go into it if it's in RTK fixed. It will immediately drop to RTK float as soon as I drop it on top of the electronics box, and then I move it like up onto the table or down onto the ground, half a meter to a meter away, and it after a minute or so it goes back into RTK fixed. Very reliable. So I think that the EMI from the RPi and ESP32 is interfering with the low noise amplifier in the antenna.
Could be, yeah. I was going to say it works, but you have to hold it 5 feet above the platform, right? No.
Well, no, I was able to. It actually works mounted on the front of the robot, so
that's
a good. That's a good like 2.5 feet away from the electronics box.
Yeah.
I haven't turned on the blades. I'm not sure if they'll mess it up, but the blade
more
mode.
We'll see. Which mode is the more sensitive?
What?
Which mode is more sensitive?
No, I'm saying that the GPS antenna, I don't know if it'll get messed up when I turn the blade motors on.
Oh, I see. No, I was wondering on the RTK. So you said there's fixed and float. Which one of those needs a separation?
Fixed is the 2 centimeter mode. In float, it can float all around. I often see it, half a meter off, a meter off. It's a lot lower accuracy in float.
Yeah, you really want it in fixed.
Yeah.
You can get. I have a really sophisticated tool. You know how those antennas have a magnet in them?
Yeah.
And you really want to keep them away from your IMU.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to figure out, okay, how far away does it have to be? So I used the old compass to. Yeah. So basically, if I hold the compass over the magnet in the antenna, it deflects from what the Earth's magnetic field.
Yeah.
And if I pull it away, as soon as it goes back to indicating the Earth's magnetic field, I know I'm far enough away. So, and it seems to have worked. So
Well,
in my case,
just springboarding off of that comment, Ray, I observed a curious thing that I don't quite understand. Because like you, I got out my little magnetic compass and moved it around, and it deviated when I put it over the top of the electronics box.
Oh, that's weird. DC current going through a bunch of wires, maybe in the same direction, like a coil.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Let me just see.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll be able to get the camera around far enough to actually show that, but yeah.
Well, that's the basic principle of electricity relationship between electricity and magnetism. I guess if you have current going through a wire, it's going to have a magnetic field around it. So
yeah, right. So let me just line it up to north. I don't know if you all can see this. You might want to pin me. But as I move it over the box,
That is something I don't want to do.
you can kind of it's around 20 degrees.
does the box have any steel parts in it?
No, it's all plastic.
Oh, huh.
And now it's at like 340.
Huh.
I move it away and it goes back to north.
And that's with power off.
No, that's with power on.
Oh, power on. Okay. Huh.
Well, turn power off. Does it do it, Paul?
That's an interesting point. I can turn power off. Let me see what happens.
That would tell you whether you have a residual magnetic field, or, you know, because you got something in it that got magnetized, or whether or not
Right.
what Ray was talking about is just current flow.
Right. So let me turn it off. Nope, it did not change.
So you got a magnet somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Huh. That's interesting.
Are the blade motors near that box?
Well, the drive motors are under here and here, and they're fairly close to the top. So I guess it could be the.
Yeah, it's in the motor.
Oh yeah, look at that. It's in the motor. Okay. So I don't know whether that's the motor or whether they're. Yeah, they're
Probably the field magnets.
That must be the motor.
Yeah.
Could be, yeah.
Wow.
But if you're talking RTK, why are we worried about static EM fields?
No, we're not. That was just sort of like came up as a side conversation. I don't know why someone asked about. Because that's right. Ray was talking about how he measured how strong the magnet was with his compass, and then that sort of made me jump to the idea that, well, I discovered this strange magnetic field that I don't understand around the electronics box.
Yep.
So anyway, that was my update. Is that RTK Fixed is working with the antenna mounted on the front of the robot, and it's pretty. It's like dead reliable. You know, I drive it out from under the carport, and it goes from float out into fixed, and you know, once it exits from under the roof. So it's I'm pretty happy about that.
Yep. Hey, it's cool.
Electromagnetic compatibility is fun stuff. So
yeah,
turn those blades on. Let's see what happens then.
Yeah. I'll let you know. Okay, well, we were about to wind this up, and that was my last the last update. So see you all guys in a week.
Have a productive night, guys. Have a great evening. Talk to you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.